Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark DeJesus here, your brother from another mother, bringing you insights along the way, along this journey. I'm all about mental, emotional, and relationship health. And if you are too, you have arrived at a great place. Today, I want to talk about a subject that many people have written to me about, asking questions, saying, can you address this more and help bring some insight and understanding? And I want to talk about it to help empower and bring some perspective to your healing journey and also give you some steps on how to navigate through it. It's two terms, but I want to explain them and help bring some perspective to it. It's called depersonalization and derealization. And what I'm going to bring about is these are manifestations of a struggle that comes about of emotional disconnect, where we feel emotionally disconnected from ourselves, from the world around us. And in your mental health journey, this can feel very frightening and at times feel like it's debilitating. So I want to speak into it for a few moments, give you some insight about what drives this, and I want to encourage you along the way. These terms get thrown around a lot in mental health communities and discussions. And of course, I do a lot of work in the area of OCD. So I have many perfectionists, obsessive-compulsives. I've also worked with people in a number of different other areas as well, too. But, and this derealization, depersonalization can happen in many areas of mental health struggles. It mainly has to do with the struggle of feeling present and feeling relationally, emotionally connected. It really has to do with a sense of disconnect. So I want to get into this and help bring some perspective. So we're talking about the struggle of disconnect and also the struggle to be present. How many of us in our journey, the challenge is just being here in the moment with yourself, with whoever you're talking to, with God, with life, just being in the moment, because our mental health battles, our anxiousness, our depression, our obsessive compulsive, the struggles that want to create a dissociation, a disconnect to being within connected to your feelings, being within connected to the person in front of you, being able to be connected to God and his work in your life. Bring some perspective to this is really important. So when we talk about depersonalization, it's really talking about that word personal. It's talking about disconnect from yourself. And those who go through it, you know what this often feels like. You feel detached or you feel disconnected from yourself, your feelings, and even your body. As it's a big aspect of you don't feel connected to your emotional world. You can feel like you're observing and watching yourself, but you're just not connected to it. There's a variety of things that can impact this kind of disconnect. The other is derealization. This will help you to just kind of understand the use of these terms. Sometimes we use a lot of terms, and I like to break down. What are we talking about? What do we mean here? Derealization, we're talking about reality. It's a disconnect from reality. The first is a disconnect from yourself. The second is a disconnect from reality. So in one sense, depersonalization, you're struggling to connect to what you feel, struggling to connect to your life and your journey. The second is now you feel detached from your surroundings and your environment. Sometimes it can feel like the world is unreal. It can feel like, okay, this is the way that I want to feel connected, but I just don't. You just look at your world as an observer and you don't feel connected to it. I feel like in my OCD healing journey, especially, I felt this quite often. And I'm going to get into, and then at the end, I'll kind of round it up to help you to get a picture of my journey and what it took for me to work through this. The way I would describe it is I would describe it as though I had a plexiglass wall on my chest, meaning that I could see life, I could see people, I could see what I wanted, but I couldn't connect to it. There was an anxiousness, and I would just feel it physiologically right here in my chest. Just this anxious tension and a sense of like a blockade between me and those around me, especially when obsessive disturbances would kick up, anxiety would kick up, and panic attacks, would kick up. this sense of disconnect. And even in people I've worked with who have had battles with schizophrenia, there's this sense of just disconnect from the world, being able to be connected to people. And so I wanted it. I wanted to feel what I saw other people feeling. I just couldn't connect to it. I saw other people enjoying interaction. I feel like I couldn't, but I wanted to. Okay, so this kind of helps to put some perspective to it. Then at the same time, you feel disconnected to your emotions, especially when you want to move in new directions. So if I go back to this depersonalization, when you want to move in new directions, it becomes very, very challenging because it feels very foreign, right? You're not feeding your obsessions anymore. You're not feeding the fear, and you're working in new directions. That's a time where you can feel really, really disconnected. It can even heighten it and create a panic. So what I want to do is I want to show you some unhelpful ways that we react. And just to kind of give us an understanding of some things we do, it's understandable, but it's not helpful. One thing that we do is we shame ourselves for disconnection. We shame ourselves for being in the moment and not being able to be in the moment. And shame always makes things worse. It always makes things more challenging because it heightens the badness of it. It heightens the darkness of it. It magnifies it. And it really just feeds fear, which is the second thing that we do. We feel a nervousness because when you're disconnected, this creates a lot of anxiousness, creates a lot of disturbance. And as I teach in all my mental health resources, all healing in mental health is relational. It's relational mending, relational healing, relational growth. We want quick fixes. We want quick solutions. It's a journey, and the journey is relational. How I relate to myself and my thoughts, how I relate to God, how I relate to you, how I perceive the world around me. This disconnect is at the foundation of what brings about mental health battles. So whether people say they feel derealization or depersonalization, it doesn't negate the fact, whether they feel that or not, it doesn't negate the fact that we all have a sense of disconnect that God is calling us to bring healing to, and reconnection involves love. That's why Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. On this hangs everything. Everything hangs on this. So we have to understand mental, emotional, relationship health hangs on our ability to process love, and where love hasn't been connected in healthy ways in our lives, that disconnect spawns many battlegrounds. And so one of the things we do is we feed the fear. You feel a fear because that disconnect is frightening. You feel disconnected from God, disconnected from people, from life. But what we do is we feed it and then catastrophize it. And catastrophizing is we throw an atom bomb at the fear. Now, we go nuclear with it. And now the sky is falling. This is going to be forever. I'm never going to get through this. What I feel right now is going to be a permanent thing. And we start creating recipes of the future, the substance of things not hoped for. Oh my, I'll never be able to, I'm crazy. Am I crazy? I must be crazy. What's wrong with me? What's the matter with me? We start shaming ourselves and we catastrophize ourselves. And these are both anti-compassion actions. They're anti-grace, they're anti-love, they're anti-compassion, and they are anti-connection. Because that's what shame does, is it disconnects us, pushes us away. That's what rejection does. A rejection mindset is fueled by a sense of disconnect. That's why I teach so much on the rejection mindset and understanding it so that we can allow God to heal places of reconnection in our journey, right? And the fear, what does it do? It creates that wedge to create a sense of separation. We go into fight, we go into flight, right? Because what we're needing is reconnection. But these two things right at the jump don't help us. Many of us go further because we can't take this feeling, so we go to addictions. We numb out, we check out further, right? This feeling is so strange, so we alter our emotional and mental state even more, because that's often what our addictions do, is get us to an altered state where we either numb out, check out, or feel something because what we're feeling is awful, is terrible. Another thing that we do, and this is very, very common, is we misdiagnose ourselves, meaning we have distorted interpretations. And you may go, I feel disconnected. Oh, they're talking about this derealization. Oh, maybe I'm feeling this because I've committed the unpardonable sin, because God is not here, because I did something wrong, and this is why I'm feeling this. So we interpret it in ways that inflame shame and inflame fear. And so if you notice your interpretation makes the fear just keep growing and growing and growing, and the catastrophizing of it, and the shame just increases, you have to realize I'm feeding a toxic interpreter, because what we're needing is reconnection, and reconnection starts with a compassionate response. It starts with a nurturing perspective of somebody walking alongside of you to say, hey, it's okay. You're all right. Yep, you're struggling right now, but it's okay. Now, we all long for some human being or we long for some interaction that will come about like that and rescue us. But what I'm calling you today is your journey is learning how to be able to do that with yourself. Yes, God is here. The work of Christ is available. But you and I have to be able to look at ourselves and recalibrate and go, hey, and this is why I talk about even having a conversation with myself in the mirror, or even just having a new internal dialogue that I invite that is based on God's love for me, of kindness, of encouragement, of compassionate settling. So before I get into some of the practical steps I want to encourage you in, why do we do this? What influences this? Well, at the top of the list is it's a trauma response, certainly. And trauma involves sudden moments that are overwhelming to our system, that hit us at intense levels and cause us at times to feel this need to dissociate or escape, right? And so then that kind of follows us as a pattern where the trauma's over, but now we're still relating in that kind of way. It can certainly come from childhood trauma and PTSD, certainly. Disconnect, it can be a protective response. It's a way that I'm not going to feel. I'm not going to feel that, and so therefore I'm protected. Then over time we're going, wait a second, I'm not feeling anything, because we hit a switch internally for survival, and now the survival is following us. It can certainly come out, this pattern can certainly come out of an emotional neglect. We're just emotionally undeveloped. So as life begins to hit you, you're not equipped for it. You're not equipped to handle what's happening in your life and in your journey. Stress levels reach a breaking point, right? So many of us in our journey, you hit this lid of where your references are, where you feel your strength is, and we kind of just disconnect, right? And this can fuel that as well too. OCDers very much have and talk about this sense of derealization, depersonalization, the sense of disconnect. The very nature of OCD is that it creates a distorted perspective, a altered reality that I talk about in my book, The OCD Healing Journey. It creates an altered sense of what is true and what is healthy. Now, OCDers may go, I see where this thing is taking me. I don't know what to do about it. I'm lost in it. I'm anxious. I'm spinning. I'm spiraling. And they can see, I want to be over here, but I'm struggling. Others can be in their spiral and defend it. You know, they may say, no, Mark, I have committed the unpardonable sin. No, I am eternally separated. What I've done is to, or whatever kind of spin out that they're in, they can be convinced of it. But then there's those who say they're recognizing, I'm in this division where I'm in this one place that is taking me into a spiral, but I want to be in this fruitful place. I just can't seem to connect. And that disconnect feels very intense. Many obsessors go into their private world compulsively. So they're at a social event, they start spinning, they walk away, get by themselves because they got to get in their head and ruminate over this because they got to fix it. This can feed the isolation. This can feed the sense of disconnect. It feeds relational wedges where you're not able to experience the beauty of relational connection. That's why I encourage over and over again, our healing journey involves learning how to connect with people that are helpful, that are safe, that are sharpening, that allow us to navigate our growth, because that influences mental health in a profound way. So when an OCDer realizes, okay, I've got to leave my compulsions and I've got to face my fear, in this sense of depersonalization, derealization, disconnect can sometimes feel like it's increasing as you take the step. It feels like the darkness increases. Why? Because you're moving in a completely different direction. And at first it feels wrong because now you're facing the fear. You're facing the fear that caused you to isolate, it caused you to avoid, it caused you to withdraw. And as I encourage all my brothers and sisters, we are all on a journey of layer by layer facing our fears and moving into new directions. And during that, it can inflame this. It takes time for our emotions to catch up to where we are heading and moving towards. Let me say this again. It takes time for our emotions to catch up with where we are going, where we have decided we're moving towards. And many people in this shift, they get very discouraged because they'll take a step and they feel anxiety increase. They go, I must be doing something wrong. They feel the sense of disconnect increase. I must be doing something wrong. When in fact, you are moving in a whole new direction and your emotions are going, wait a second. When A would happen, you would do B, C, D, and E. Wait a second. You're now changing things. Your body's kind of going, wait, you're doing this without my permission. What's happening here? It takes time. Then here's what happens. Many times you get accused because you feel disconnected, but you made a decision. You're walking in a new direction. You get this thing. You're an imposter. You're an imposter. You're faking it. Now the shame increases some more as a last-ditch effort to keep you from stepping out. And you go, oh, I'm faking it. I'm trying to pay attention. I'm trying to be loving. I'm trying to be connected to people. I'm trying to be connected to life, and I'm faking it. And then you sabotage yourself and you go backwards. Maybe you go back and feed your compulsions again and go back into the spin cycle. And so you cannot, here's the thing that I'll say, and I'll repeat this. You cannot expect yourself to make a decision in a new direction and then expect yourself to arrive without practice. We would all say, Mark, that's ludicrous if I said, okay, tomorrow I want to be a professional golfer. I'm not a good golfer. I have a pretty terrible swing. It just is what it is. Right? But if I go, I just have fun realizing I'm not a professional golfer. But if I make a decision, I got to make room that I have a learning curve of something that is very unfamiliar for me. And when you've lived in a sense of disconnect from people and from yourself, this is going to take a journey of learning. You cannot expect yourself to just arrive, because all you will do is frustrate yourself. All you will do is actually inflame the battle. And what you're going to need is a different response in how you relate to yourself in this. Okay? So anyways, these are some things that influence us. Now, I must say this. Always have to keep in mind that medication can have an effect on this. Okay? I'm not your doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm a brother from another mother, but that's a factor. Either the side effects or the medication having that kind of effect. So something always to be aware of. But let's get into the emotional healing and freedom journey of this and looking at, okay, what is it that we need? And I want to give you some things that we need in the midst of this emotional disconnect, in this sense of being disconnected from ourselves and from the world around us. Is number one, what we need is just to be aware. Be aware first and foremost. Being present in the moment is a healthy place to live. That's where we want to be. That's where we need to be. So if you want to work through this, you have to value being relationally present, not just with people, but in the moment. And take a moment to pick up on, where do you live? Do you live constantly in the future? That's often the world of anxiety. Do you constantly live in the past? That's often the world of shame and depression, right? The unhealed things of the past that you then ruminate in. That's often what depression does. Spinning about the future or what could go wrong or what bad thing is going to happen. Those things keep us out of being in the present. Or do you live in an altered reality of where you are? And this can fall into things like paranoid schizophrenia, but for many that I work with, it's what OCD does. And even many OCDers go, "Oh, I'm schizophrenic," and they can. That's a whole subject in its own. But what happens is there's a sense of the disturbance is true, and we live in that, and it takes you out of the moment. And that's what I lived in for a lot of my life. Living in the future with anxiety, living in the past with depression and shame, and living in an altered present that OCD dictated. And so if I value this, if I value being present, then I have to value relationship. And that was a shift in my life because I valued achievement, perfectionism, and performance. So my life was go, 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 do, perform. I had to slow down and go, no, I want to value this. Therefore, I'm going to value relational connection. I'm going to value being with someone relationally and letting that be healing. Interacting with somebody, talking, having conversation, praying with somebody, helping somebody else, allowing somebody to be helpful towards me. Okay? These are all things in saying, okay, this is important. Number 2, and this is where the shift starts. All things start with self-compassion, and that's you're going to need to be compassionate with yourself. Often our first reaction is fear combined with shame, but we're going to shift that now. Now my response is going to be compassionate grace. It's all right. It's all right that I'm feeling this. It's okay. Yeah, it's frightening. It's all right. It's all right. But I'm going to walk along myself as though I was talking to someone else. I am going to practice reconnection with myself. Because in our battlegrounds, and please hear me and listen to this, in our mental health battlegrounds, our traumas and dramas and struggles, one of the common disconnects that happens and takes a while to learn, realize, and heal is you become a house divided within yourself. You become an enemy to yourself. You become a hostile inner critic, and you are constantly trying to get away from yourself because there's a disconnect to love. Love helps to settle this. And this is what God's wanting to do, a restoring of relationship with Him, with yourself, and with those around you. So compassion starts with, it's okay that you're not connected right now. It is okay. You're working through some things. It's okay that you're not okay. Take a deep breath. It is all right. And number 3, what I want to bring into your journey as an invitation is to graciously recognize your emotions are struggling to line up with where you want to be. You're with some friends and you feel disconnected. It's okay. Recognize it graciously. Don't feed it catastrophically. Don't feed the spiral. Be a nurturer. It's all right. It's all right. Take a deep breath. It's okay. And you know why this is so important? Because emotions don't shift and grow under pressure and tension and duress. Emotions grow and flourish and shift in new directions under empowerment and loving encouragement. That, hey, it's all right. You're moving in a new direction. You're facing your fears. It's all right. It's been very, very helpful for me to realize my body, my neural pathways, my nervous system, my endocrine system, my limbic system take time to catch up with new directions I'm headed in. And so when I step into new territory, new thinking, I go, oh, there it is. It's just the rest of the you have the trains and the train track and the locomotive, it's just the all the way back to the caboose. They're catching up with this new direction, and it's all right. It's all right now. So now you become a witness of compassionate grace versus a harsh, militant, shame-filled inner critic that is always working against you. And we know the Bible says a house divided against itself cannot stand. But most of us live as a divided house within us. So that's why we're always just struggling and drowning because of how we relate to ourselves. Okay? So this is a gracious thing, or gracious recognition. Number 4 is don't wait until things feel right to take action. This is a common thing you're going to hear me coaching you in, is the feelings take time to catch up. Make a decision. This is where I want to move. I'm going to move in this new direction. I don't feel connected, but I'm still going to act, because many of us feed the disconnection, and that's unhelpful. And we just isolate, we just stay within ourselves, and we have to head in a new direction. Say, I'm going to step in this new pathway, recognizing my emotions are struggling. So you're going to gently redirect yourself to being in the moment. You're spinning out about tomorrow. Just gently bring it back in here. You're spinning about the past. Just gently bring it back here in the moment. Even though you're struggling, you go out in your OCD spiral. You go out in your altered reality that it pulls you into. You just pull yourself back into the moment, either what's in front of you, the person that's in front of you, the situation that you're in. And oftentimes what I utilize gratitude and just gentle reminders. I bring gentle reminders. Mark, it's okay. Be in the moment. Just breathe. Mark, it's all right. And I just connect to gratitude, because gratitude anchors you in the moment. It helps fuel and fill your heart to being reconnected, because gratitude points me to what is good. It points me to who God is. It points me to what's available so that I can begin to build and focus that. Now, in your journey, you have to let yourself practice, even though you don't feel it. This is practice. Remember, you're not arriving somewhere. I'm just going to arrive and a light switch thing. And why hasn't this happened, Mark? Practice interactions with people, even though you don't feel it. Practice being loving towards yourself, even though you don't feel it. Practice even thanking God for the love that he has for you, even though you struggle to feel it. Practice being present, even though you are fussing in your physiology, knowing that over time, your physiology will catch up. And let me remind you, because many of you go into imposter syndrome. You're not being phony. You're practicing. You're not faking it. You're practicing. Now, there's many who say, fake it till you make it. And it's actually a legit saying. There is a lot of truth to that. But I want to take it up a level. I want to take it up a level and remind you, you're not faking this. You're practicing a new direction. For example, even relationally, right? We have people that irritate us or bother us. And we know the Bible says love those and even love your enemies and love people. We want to have a loving posture, right? And we go, ugh. And sometimes we go, you know what? I'm just going to be loving even though I don't feel it. I'm just going to act in a way, in a different, more compassionate way, right? And then over time, God works with that because you took a step of faith. You moved in a new direction, even though at first your feelings were resisting. And we have to have a new relationship with resistance. Okay? So practice being relational in the moment, even though your mind and your body is struggling to fully appreciate it and struggling to fully connect to this. So where do you find this is helping you in your journey? Where do you find it's helping you in your life and what it means to work through this derealization and depersonalization? I'll tell you, I remember the day where I started to see breakthrough, because for a while I would feel this disconnect, plexiglass on my chest. And I would just, whenever there was a get together and with friends or a church thing or just with loved ones, I would go, you know what? This is my practice. I'm practicing being in the moment. When I'd be by myself, I would just practice, here's the new direction I'm moving in, gently redirecting myself. And I remember there was a day, I believe Melissa and I were either dating or we were engaged somewhere within, but I remember the moment visually. We were having dinner with another couple. And I had been walking this journey. And I remember sitting there, and we weren't in prayer. It wasn't a church service. It wasn't some special spiritual moment that people would normally think of. But this was a divine realization for me. We were just having some steak. And I just paused and leaned back in my chair, and I looked at Melissa. The other couple had stepped away for a second. And I looked at her and I said, wow, this feels great to feel connected to the moment. I feel connected to everything right now in such a beautiful way. And it wasn't because I was checking and checking and checking. Oh, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? How am I feeling? I was just like, this is what I struggle with. And so I'm just going to keep feeding the new, feeding the new, feeding the new. And that moment became one of hundreds and thousands of moments that have been built and built and built and built to this day that I keep feeding in my life and feeding in my life and feeding in my life. You can experience reconnection, but it's going to take a shift and a practice of moving in a new direction. So what was helpful for you and for your journey and your processing? If this video was a blessing to your life and your journey, do me a favor, click that like button, subscribe, share it with a friend, somebody that you love, or maybe that you're encouraging. And you can also click the donate button at markdejesus.com for a one-time donation or become a regular supporter of this ministry work by a monthly donation. I also have a deeper level for those that want to go to the next level. You've read my books. You've gone through my free materials. I have over 900 at this point, free video materials that are out there. But you want to take a next level. I have a healing and freedom community that I've formed of people that want to take that next step and invest in the work of mental, emotional, and relationship health. Well, it's been an honor to share this with you today. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. This is your brother from another mother saying, I'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime, I'm out.